My name is Scarlett Winslow, and I was 27 years old when my mother left a voicemail that changed my life forever. The message came at 9:47 on a Tuesday night. I was sitting on my bed in a tiny apartment in Philadelphia, finishing a report for work. My laptop balanced on a pillow while rain tapped softly against the window. My phone buzzed. One missed call. Mom. Then a voicemail notification. I almost ignored it. My mother rarely called me directly. Most of the time, she sent short texts like, "Call me," or, "Can you send money?" A voicemail felt different. More personal. I pressed play. Her voice came through the speaker cold and steady. "Scarlett, this is your mother. We've made a decision as a family. You are no longer welcome here. Don't come back. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We're moving on without you." The message ended. 31 seconds. That was all it took. 31 seconds to erase 27 years of being the daughter who never said no. I stared at the screen. Then I played it again. Surely there had to be a reason. A mistake. An explanation. But there wasn't. Just a verdict. No discussion. No warning. No chance to defend myself. I opened our family group chat. I had been removed. Not muted. Removed. My chest tightened. Then I noticed something else. The chat name had changed. It used to be called the Winslow family. Now it was called us. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it hurt. Apparently, I was no longer part of us. I placed my phone on the nightstand and stared across the room. A framed family photo sat on a shelf. My parents. My younger sister. Me. I was standing on the far edge of the picture. Half cut off. Funny how some signs are obvious only after everything falls apart. For 10 minutes I sat there without moving. The old Scarlett wanted to call back immediately. Apologize. Beg. Ask what I had done wrong. That had always been my role in the family. Fix things. Carry things. Pay for things. Keep everyone happy. Even when nobody cared whether I was happy. My thumb hovered over Mom's contact. Then I stopped. Something inside me finally broke. Or maybe healed. I wasn't sure. Instead of calling, I opened our text conversation. I typed one word. Okay. Then I sent it. No questions. No anger. No tears. Just okay. The message showed delivered. Then silence. No reply. No phone call. Nothing. And somehow that silence told me everything. Mom expected me to chase after her. She expected me to fight for my place in the family. When I didn't, she didn't know what to do. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because I was crying. That came later. Around 3 in the morning. Sharp and sudden. Like a knife sliding between my ribs. No. What kept me awake was something else. I work in risk analysis. When something goes wrong, my brain starts looking for patterns. For answers. For hidden problems. At midnight I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet. I titled it Family Financial Obligations. Then I started typing. Mortgage payment on the family home. Health insurance. Car payments. Medical bills. Emergency expenses. Security deposits. Dental bills. Everything. Every dollar I had spent helping my family over the last 6 years. Line after line appeared on the screen. By 2 in the morning, the final number stared back at me. $143,214. I blinked. Then checked it again. The number was correct. Over $143,000. I leaned back in my chair. For years, I had convinced myself the money wasn't important. Family helped family. That's what Mom always said. But now, sitting alone in the dark, I couldn't ignore the truth. I had given more than money. I had given pieces of my life. The worst part wasn't even the total. The worst part came when I opened the supporting documents. Because that's when I remembered something my family apparently forgot. My name was on everything. The mortgage. The deed. The accounts. And most importantly, my grandmother's trust fund. Every important financial thread in their lives ran through me. I wasn't just helping hold things together. I was the reason everything stayed standing. The next morning I made coffee and logged into the household account I had created years earlier. The account handled mortgage payments, utilities, insurance, and other bills. The dashboard loaded. Immediately something caught my attention. The contact email had been changed. My email was gone. A different one had replaced it. My sister's. Blair Winslow. The change had happened 2 days before Mom's voicemail. 2 days. I stared at the screen. A cold feeling settled into my stomach. Then I started digging deeper. An email buried in my inbox caught my eye. It came from the title company handling our house paperwork. The subject line mentioned a property amendment. I opened it. My heart nearly stopped. Someone had submitted paperwork requesting my removal from the property deed. My name. My property rights. Gone. At least that was the plan. The submission listed Blair as an authorized family representative. I had never authorized anything. Not once. Suddenly everything became clear. The voicemail wasn't the real attack. The paperwork was. The voicemail was just a distraction. A way to push me away while nobody expected me to look at the documents. I sat frozen at my desk. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't a family argument. It was a scheme. To understand how we got there, you need to understand what life was like growing up in the Winslow family. I was 14. Blair was 10. Summer vacation had just started. Mom and Dad sat us down at the kitchen table. They announced that Blair would be attending art camp. 4 weeks. Paints. Projects. Friends. Fun. I smiled and asked if I could attend a math program at the community college. I had earned a place through my grades. The program was free. Mom didn't even think about it. She shook her head. Someone needs to watch your sister. But it's free, I said. Scarlett, she replied, you're the older one. You understand. And I did understand. I understood that Blair got opportunities. I got responsibilities. When I earned perfect grades, nobody celebrated. When Blair failed a test, the entire family comforted her. Dad took her for ice cream. Mom sat beside her and brushed her hair. You're more than a test score, she whispered. I heard every word from the next room. Nobody ever said things like that to me. Not because I didn't need encouragement. Because nobody thought I needed anything. I was the dependable one. The strong one. The one who could handle everything. Mom told me that directly once. I was in college. Overwhelmed. Exhausted. I called home hoping for support. Instead, she said 7 words that stayed with me for years. You're the strong one. Blair needs me more. That was it. Conversation over. I carried those words for nearly a decade. After graduation, I landed my first real job. I was proud. Excited. Hopeful. 4 hours later, Mom called. Dad had hurt his back. The hospital bill was $2,000. Could I help? Of course I could. I transferred the money that night. 3 weeks later, Blair needed $1,200 for an apartment deposit. Mom called again. I carefully asked whether Blair had any savings. The silence that followed felt dangerous. "She's your sister," Mom finally said. "How can you even ask that?" So I sent the money. Again. Months passed. Then years. The requests never stopped. There was always another emergency. Another crisis. Another bill. Every time I helped. Every time they promised it was temporary. Every time I believed them. By the end of my first year working, I had given my family nearly $14,000. Nobody thanked me. Not once. My birthday came and went. Mom forgot. A week later she threw a party for Blair's birthday. I paid for the cake. That should tell you everything. 3 years before the voicemail, Mom called with what she described as a wonderful opportunity. She and Dad wanted to buy a house. A beautiful 3-bedroom place outside the city. There was just one problem. Their credit was terrible. No bank would approve them. So Mom had a solution. Me. "Just co-sign," she said. "It's for the family." I should have hired a lawyer. I should have asked questions. Instead, I signed. My name went on the mortgage. My name went on the deed. And every month afterward, the mortgage payment came from my account. $1,850. Like clockwork. Meanwhile, Blair moved into the largest bedroom. She decorated it and posted pictures online. When I visited, I slept on a pull-out couch. I paid for a house where I didn't even have a room. 6 months before the voicemail, I overheard something during a family call. Mom thought I had already hung up. She was talking to Blair. "Once we refinance," Mom said, "we can pull money out. Don't worry about Scarlett. I'll handle her." Handle her. The words haunted me. At the time I tried convincing myself I had misunderstood. Now I knew better. My grandmother passed away 4 years ago. Before she died, she updated her trust. $86,000. Reserved for family education and medical needs. And she named one trustee. Me. Not Mom. Not Blair. Me. Grandma trusted me because she knew I would follow the rules. Mom never liked that decision. A year later Blair wanted $15,000 from the trust to start an online business. I reviewed the request. Then I said no. The trust didn't allow it. The money was for education and medical expenses. Nothing else. Blair cried. Mom called. Accused me of being controlling. Accused me of being selfish. Then relatives started hearing stories about how I was supposedly keeping Grandma's money for myself. The lies spread quickly. I stayed silent. I was too tired to fight. Then 2 months before the voicemail, Blair called unexpectedly. She sounded friendly. Warm. Almost sisterly. We talked for 40 minutes. Near the end of the call, she casually said something that stuck with me. "Honestly, Scarlett, I just need you out of the trust and off the deed. Then everything gets simpler for everyone." At the time I thought she was being careless. Now I realized she had been revealing the plan. What she didn't know was that my phone automatically recorded long calls. The recording was saved. Stored safely. Waiting for a moment neither of us could imagine yet. A moment that was coming much sooner than anyone expected. And within days, I would discover something that changed everything. Something that proved my sister wasn't just trying to push me aside. She was willing to break the law to do it. The next morning, I walked into work looking like I hadn't slept in days. Honestly, I hadn't. My head was full of questions. Why had Blair changed the account information? Why was she trying to remove me from the deed? And how long had this been happening behind my back? I sat at my desk and opened every document I could find. Every email. Every account statement. Every property record. I checked everything line by line. Then I found it. The document. The one that changed everything. It was the deed amendment form requesting my removal from the property title. At first glance, it looked normal. Then I saw the signature. My signature. Or at least a copy of it. I zoomed in. Closer. Closer. And there it was. A tiny mistake. Something nobody else would notice. The letter O in Winslow. I always left a small opening in the loop. The signature on the form didn't. It was closed. A tiny difference. But enough. Someone had forged my name. I felt ice run through my veins. My sister hadn't just tried to remove me from property I legally owned. She had forged documents to do it. I checked the submission details. The form had been submitted electronically. By Blair Winslow. 3 days before Mom's voicemail. 3 days. The timeline suddenly became crystal clear. First, Blair submitted the forged paperwork. Then she changed the account information. Then Mom sent the voicemail. Everything had been planned. Everything. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I reached for the sticky note my coworker Graham Mercer had given me. The lawyer. Vivian Blackwood. I called immediately. By the next afternoon, I was sitting in her office. Vivian listened without interrupting. She reviewed every document. Every email. Every signature. When she finished, she folded her hands. Miss Winslow, you have 2 serious problems. I nodded. The forgery? That's the first. And the second? Someone is attempting to alter ownership of property without your consent. I took a slow breath. What happens now? Vivian leaned back. Now we protect you. For the first time in days, I felt a small sense of relief. She explained everything carefully. The refinance couldn't happen without my approval. The trust couldn't move without my approval. The deed couldn't legally change without my approval. My family had tried to remove me. But they had forgotten something important. I was still holding all the keys. Then I asked a question that surprised even me. What if I stop? Vivian understood immediately. Stop paying? I nodded. She didn't hesitate. The entire system collapses. The words hung in the air. Not because I wanted revenge. I didn't. I simply wanted out. I was tired. Tired of carrying everyone. Tired of fixing problems I didn't create. Tired of being useful only when someone needed money. That weekend, I listened to Blair's recorded phone call again. Her voice filled my apartment. Warm. Friendly. Manipulative. I just need you out of the trust and off the deed. The sentence sounded completely different now. Not like a suggestion. Like a goal. A plan. A confession. I saved the recording in multiple places. Then I waited. Monday morning, the process began. The trust was frozen. No money could be withdrawn. No transfers could happen. Nothing moved without my approval. Then the mortgage payments stopped. The bank received evidence of the forged signature. The refinance process was frozen immediately. Legal notices were sent. Everything was documented. Everything was official. And everything was about to explode. Exactly 51 hours later, my phone started vibrating. Again. And again. And again. When I finally looked, I almost laughed. 19 missed calls from Mom. 8 from Dad. 14 from Blair. Several emails. Dozens of messages. The family that had told me to disappear suddenly needed me desperately. The texts kept arriving. Call me immediately. What did you do? The bank says there's a problem. You need to fix this. My favorite message came from their lawyer. A formal email. Professional language. Polite tone. One sentence stood out. "We have a serious problem." I leaned back in my chair. For 6 years I had answered every call. Every request. Every emergency. Now they were finally experiencing life without their safety net. Blair didn't wait long before contacting me directly. Message after message appeared. "Mom is devastated. This isn't about us. You're hurting the family. You need to stop." Not once did she apologize. Not once did she mention the forged signature. Not once did she take responsibility. Finally, I sent one response. "Have your lawyer contact mine." Then I muted the conversation. A few minutes later another message appeared. "Don't blame me for what happens next." I smiled sadly. Because for the first time I wasn't afraid of what happened next. Friday evening, Mom called from Dad's phone. I answered. Immediately, she started shouting. "You're destroying this family." I turned down the stove and listened. "The bank called. The refinance is frozen. The insurance company contacted us. Your father hasn't slept in days." I waited until she finished. Then I spoke calmly. "You told me not to come back. That was different. You removed me from the family. I was upset. You said you were moving on without me." Silence. Then came the guilt. The same guilt I had lived with for years. After everything I sacrificed for you. There it is, I thought. The script. The familiar script. The one that always ended with me apologizing. But not this time. "I'm not doing this anymore, Mom." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done paying." The silence that followed felt enormous. Then she said something I would never forget. "You'll regret this." Maybe. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't. The following week relatives began contacting me. Aunts. Uncles. Cousins. People who hadn't spoken to me in months suddenly had opinions. According to Blair, I was greedy. According to Blair, I was trying to steal the house. According to Blair, I had abandoned the family. I considered defending myself online. Then I remembered Graham's advice. Don't fight lies in public. Bring the truth into the right room. So Vivian arranged a meeting. Friday. Conference room. Everyone present. No excuses. No interruptions. No running away. Friday arrived. I walked into the conference room carrying a thick folder. The room smelled faintly of coffee and printer paper. Vivian sat beside me. Across the table sat my family. Mom. Dad. Blair. And their attorney. The tension was immediate. Mom wouldn't look at me. Dad looked exhausted. Blair looked nervous. For the first time in her life, tears might not save her. Vivian opened the meeting. I stood and placed copies of my spreadsheet in front of everyone. $143,214. Nobody spoke. I continued. This is how much I've contributed to this family over the last 6 years. I walked them through every payment. Mortgage. Insurance. Medical bills. Car payments. Everything. Mom's face slowly changed as she read. Dad stared at the table. Then I placed 2 documents side by side. My real signature. And the forged one. I did not sign this document. The room became silent. Painfully silent. The attorney leaned forward. Mom frowned. Blair froze. I continued. This form was submitted 3 days before I received the voicemail removing me from the family. Mom looked confused. Then she turned toward Blair. What is she talking about? Blair immediately started talking. Too quickly. Too loudly. She's twisting everything. She's always doing this. She's manipulating the situation. I let her speak. Then I reached into my folder, pulled out a USB drive, and connected it to the speaker system. Blair's face lost all color. I pressed play. The room filled with her voice. "Honestly, Scarlett, I just need you out of the trust and off the deed. Then everything gets simpler for everyone." The recording ended. Silence. Complete silence. Mom stared at the speaker. Dad closed his eyes. Their lawyer slowly placed his pen on the table. Blair looked terrified. The performance was over. There were no tears strong enough to fight a recording. "No," Blair whispered. "That's out of context." Vivian spoke calmly. "The timing of the recording and the forged document make the context very clear." Blair turned toward Mom. The way she always did when she needed rescuing. "Mom?" For years, that single word had saved her. This time it didn't. Mom said nothing. That silence changed everything. For the first time in my life, Blair was standing alone. Mom eventually looked at me. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I didn't know about the signature." I believed her. But that didn't erase everything else. "You knew about the voicemail." Tears filled her eyes. "You knew I was removed from the family." She lowered her head. "You knew Blair was spreading stories about me." No answer. Because there wasn't one. Dad looked older than I had ever seen him. Suddenly, I wasn't angry anymore. I was simply tired. So I stood. "The trust will be transferred to professional management." Nobody objected. "I'm stepping down as trustee." Then I took a breath. The mortgage arrangement ends. Mom's eyes widened. Dad looked defeated. Blair stared at the table. "You have 60 days. The room remained silent. Finally I looked directly at my sister. The sister I had protected. Supported. Defended. For years. "I don't hate you." She looked up. "But I don't trust you." Those words hurt her more than shouting ever could. I gathered my papers. Dad spoke quietly. "Scarlett." I stopped. But I didn't turn around. "You have 60 days. Then I walked out. The sound of the door closing echoed behind me. And with it, 6 years of carrying people who never intended to carry me. 3 months later, everything had changed. The refinance failed. The trust was protected. The house was eventually sold. The insurance ended. Their attorney withdrew from the case. The truth slowly spread through the family. Not because I fought. Because facts eventually speak for themselves. Dad called once. He apologized. Then asked for help. The apology sounded real. The request sounded familiar. I said no. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. Months passed. The mortgage money stayed in my account. My savings grew. My student loans shrank. I booked trips. Made plans. Built a future. Blair never contacted me again. Mom called occasionally. Short conversations. No guilt. No demands. Just distance. And honestly, distance felt peaceful. One afternoon Graham asked me a simple question. "How do you feel?" I thought carefully before answering. Then I smiled. Lighter. Because that was the truth. For years I believed love meant sacrifice. I believed family meant endless giving. I believed being needed meant being valued. I was wrong. Love without respect isn't love. Family isn't ownership. And boundaries aren't cruelty. Sometimes boundaries are the first honest thing you ever say. The people I loved most told me to leave. So I did. And when I finally walked away, I discovered something beautiful. The life I spent years holding together wasn't actually mine. But the one I built afterward was. And for the first time, that was enough. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been the one carrying everyone else while being treated like you didn't matter, you're not alone. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is finally put the weight down.